In this video, we're going to deal with preparing your images using Photoshop. I've simply opened up a few files. I've got an image of clouds, an image of an electronic display, and I've got a logo. We're going to take a look at adapting these images for the web. Now, although you can use JPEGs in your web pages, you often need to resize the images or to lower their byte count in order to get the maximum amount of image for the least amount of download time. So the trick here is to try to retain the quality, keep the quality as high as you can, but create as small a file as possible. With continuous tone images, such as this one or the clouds, you're most often going to be saving these files as JPEGs. So JPEG is what you use for continuous tone. There may be PNG files as opposed to JPEG that may give us a better image, but usually the default for continuous tone is JPEG. So JPEG is simple. You open up the file, you size it to the size you want. So in this case, I want something that will not exceed the width of my page. Let's just say 900 pixels width is pretty good for most websites. You can go up to 1200 in some cases. You can go bigger if you want a higher resolution, but I'm going to stick with 500 pixels width. Now, I'm not going to be concerned at all with resolution. Resolution is really an artifact of the print world. We're going to just be concerned with the pixels width and height. So I'm going to click OK on that and bring that up to 100% so I can see it full. If I need to do any filters in terms of sharpening, whatever, I can do that. But I'm pretty happy with this as it is. My next step will be to save it for the web. Now, with JPEGs that are normally saved using the file save command, I can save as a JPEG or different formats. But what that does is it also adds a lot of other stuff to the file that aren't required when I use it on the web. So that's why Adobe has created this special menu called Save for Web. So we're going to go into this, and it gives us a window that allows us to compare the original with the saved version. Going over here to the presets, I can choose the different formats. I have GIF or GIF, JPEG, PNG 8-bit, PNG 24-bit, and WBMP. In general, I'm going to stick between JPEG and PNG 8. You can use GIF if you want to use GIF's animation feature. So GIFs can be either static images or they can have multiple images that are animated. In this case, this is a static image. I'm going to stay with JPEG. If I'm really concerned about the color profile, keeping the colors as exact to the original as possible, I can embed the color profile. What that does, if you look down here at the area where it says what the file will end up as if I save it using these settings, it's currently at 51.22K. If I turn Embed Color Profile on, it gets a little bit bigger. It's probably 3K difference. I'm going to turn that off for now. The other thing that you need to be concerned about is the quality, and you can increase or decrease the quality, and by moving the cursor over the quality word and then clicking and dragging, I can increase and decrease the quality. So I can go up to 100%, and I see that now if I were to save this, the file size would be 307K, or I can reduce that to 0, and the end file size would be 23K. You can see perhaps that there's an amount of what's called aliasing. JPEG is a destructive compression format, which means that it takes information out of the image that was there in the original in order to bring the size down to something which is something that we can be happy with and can quickly download over the internet. With a low quality, I'm getting a significant amount of image degradation. You can see that the image is noisier, and you'll see some blocking in this image as well. If this is an important image, say this is an image which is part of a portfolio, you want to have the quality a little bit better, maybe 50%. If it's something which is not going to be, is not very important, you can bring it down to maybe 30%. 20% gets to be a little bit aliasy. But let's try that. The other thing you can look at down here is how long this image would take to download if someone was using a 56.6 kilobit modem, or if they were using, say, 256 kilobits per second is what you might be using on a busy Wi-Fi. And this would take about 2 seconds, which is okay. It would be nicer if it was faster. But that's a way that you can determine how long something like this image at this quality and the image size, how long it would take to download and view. So let's choose Save, and we'll save it as, let's call it Lights in my web directory. And let's try another one. Let's scale this one down to 900 also. But with this one, I'm going to experiment a little bit, see if when I go to Save for Web, if JPEG is the best solution, or perhaps another format is better. Let's try PNG 8. PNG 8 gives you a different set of modifiers. We'll bypass the color reduction algorithm and the dither algorithm for the moment, and I'm going to go to the colors. Now, PNG allows you to have in its color lookup table up to 256 colors. Because it's an 8-bit format, that means I have 256 different color possibilities. And what this Adobe software does is it analyzes the image, and it gives me a color lookup table which has the best matches for the actual image. If I want to see the whole thing, I can see it, the whole thing, or I can zoom in. Now at this point, there's not that much difference, though you can probably see there is a little bit of dithering in these very subtle areas, and this is why I chose this particular image. It's because they're very, very gradual grays. What's happening here is I'm using a diffusion dither. If we turn off the dither, and currently, let's look at this. It's 208.7 K in size if we were to save it under these settings. If we turn off the dither, it gets substantially smaller. But you can see that there's a little bit of banding in this. There's some dithering, but banding is there as well. It's not quite as smooth a gradation. Now, if we were to lower the number of colors, we can also get the file size down even further. If I choose half as many colors, I bring the file size down to 123.4 K, but the banding has increased. Now, this might not be a problem because it's a big file. If I'm looking at it at that size, well, it is a little bit of a problem because I can see the gradient going from a dark blue to a light blue. I'm seeing the bands of color, which is corresponding to the reduced number of colors I have in my color palette. So it doesn't look like for this image that PNG is going to work any better. So let's go back to JPEG, and you can see that at low resolution or low quality, I'm way down to 13.58K. Now, this is quite a big drop from 1.53 megabytes to 13.58K. This is about 100 times smaller than the original file. So JPEG is great for continuous tone, especially where you have subtle gradations of color. I can probably go up a little bit in terms of quality if I want, and it's 20K. Very, very small. So let's call this clouds. Let's try a third image. Now for this, if I go to save for web, I can see JPEG is pretty good. It's going from a 1.06 megabyte image to 32.88K. And if I zoom in on it, I can see, though, that there is a certain amount of aliasing happening here. And that's because of what JPEG does, especially to non-continuous tone image. So where you have flat color, JPEG doesn't work very well. So remember, this is 32.88 at a quality of 40. Let's see what happens when I go to PNG 8. There is really no difference with PNG 8 at 128 color palette. I can see no difference, and the size of the image down here is about half of what we had with the JPEG. So obviously PNG works much better with flat color. Let's see if we can bring the number of colors down to 16. Let's see what happens. I still have an excellent resolution. And I'm down to 11K in size. See what happens when I go to 2. When I go to 2, I have two colors in my color table, white and blue. Obviously, this is not going to work. Let's go up to 4. 4 still doesn't give me enough colors. Let's try 8. 8 might work, and I can get it down to 9.2K. Let's zoom in and see. I think that's perfectly acceptable. There's a little bit of difference in terms of the color of the dithering here, but at this size, it's not too bad. I prefer 16 though. 16 is going to give me a very good result. So let's save that. Origin logo master, 942 by 392. Only flat colors. The only gradients there are on the edges. It gives me a very, very small size. The clouds is a JPEG, continuous tone, 21K in size, and lights, 38K, also JPEG. So that's a little bit about how you approach preparing images using Photoshop.